Afternoon. My name is Katora Enoch Longshore. We are here today to present to you a presentation on integrating the CDA credential into higher education degree programs as a viable career pathway for early educators. I hope that you find that this presentation is informative and that you have some golden nuggets to take away at the end of it. Really thankful for the opportunity to work with both Kathleen and Judith on this work as they pioneer with Okra being a partner, formalized partner of the council and facilitating the collective work of our workforce. A little bit about myself. I've been a part of the profession ECE for over 10 years. It started for many of you as a teacher in a preschool classroom. And then that morphed into working for NACE for over 8 years. And then in 2016, joining the council and wearing many hats, but currently providing strategic support and guidance around and account management to partners who fall under the purview of alumni and or higher education. Interesting factoid is that I once testified in front of a Senate subcommittee. I was in high school at the time, so it was a little scary, but definitely a memorable experience. So with that said, I wanted to just provide some high-level goals for us today. One, I want to ensure that you understand what the CDA is as a viable option for anyone working with young children ages 0 to 5, and how to make that credential a part of a unified framework that is inclusive of higher education institutions. We will go through high level some practical tips for embedding the CDA and considerations around that as it relates to the 8 CDA subject areas and how to align your coursework and individualized teacher preparation courses to the credential. And then briefly, we will overview what it looks like to earn the CDA in the high school. As I said, conceptualizing this whole idea of building a professionalized framework for people who work with young children and serve families. And then last, we'll share a few examples of what that will look like, as it relates to statewide models, and then have a brief update of some council news that you may find helpful to you in your work, and then lastly, open the floor for some brief Q&A. So to get started, the Child Development Associate, with the acronym CDA, is a credential that is widely recognized. It's a requirement at some level for over 37 of the 50 states. It's a key stepping stone. We use the term best first step for anyone who is interested in working with young children 0 to age 5. And that aligns with our core values and mission, which is to help help early educators thrive in their own professional development. So the credential in itself serves as this foundational component that's based in not only theory, but practice. So in that way, it is competency-based. And then anyone who is working toward and earns the credential is qualified to work in a program in a lead teacher role. So this establishes a lot of rigor. And as the best first step, some key takeaways to remember about the credential is that it's nationally recognized, and I dare say also globally. Just last year, we had our first CDAs awarded in both the MENA region of Egypt, as well as the greater northern regions of China. It is transferable, meaning that, if you earn it in Ohio, it is recognized in Florida, and that person then can go work in California. So it's not operational like your standard state certificate, which may have less requirements, as well as not be transferable for the person who earns it. It sometimes articulates into associate and bachelor degree programs, which is why most of you are here. Some of you already doing that work, but my goal for today, as I said in the earlier slides, is to provide more high-level details around what this looks like to help ease and streamline that process for you. And then lastly, it's competency-based. It's a very rigorous process. Whenever I receive any type of contention on the validity and integrity of the credentialing process, I always come with facts. One, a person who earns, let's say they complete a course on child development and they go and they work in a classroom, even with years of experience, if they might have that under their belt, they probably haven't had an assessment, which the CDA provides in the form of an exam. They probably haven't had someone to really evaluate them in their practice to ensure that what they learned in terms of the theory, they're able to demonstrate in the classroom. And that is what the CDA does through the verification visit process that is conducted by the professional development specialist. They have a scoring tool where they're measuring on a spectrum what level of quality that particular and knowledge that particular candidate is able to demonstrate in the classroom. They also develop a program portfolio, which is a reflection of their personal philosophy. I like to think of it as a living document, so it should be personal to them. It really should reflect their practice, their philosophy, whether they are all about Piaget versus Reggio Emilia, and reflection in that competency that they have demonstrated as well. So in that way, the CDA is a very rigorous process and assesses the candidate across multiple disciplines to ensure that they not only know how to work with young children and families, but they're able to perform as well. The other benefits to earning the CDA is that it is a multilingual credential, meaning that if I speak primarily Somali in my or Amharic in my program with the children that I work with on a day-to-day basis, then this is the language that I want to be assessed in to ensure that that is supporting the cultural diversity that I'm bringing to that classroom and that the children that I'm serving as well. We have awarded over 800,000 credentials over our 45-year history. And it's our birthday. We turned 45 on October 31st. And you probably have seen that if you've been on our website or received any of our, subscribed to any of our newsletters or other media outlets. So that is something to tout in and of itself. And in most instances, what we advocate for is not that the CDA is the best first step, but that it should be the initial step to moving forward. We want our early educators to be very competent professionals and to feel like they belong as a part of a profession. And what that means is that we want the CDA as that foundational piece to articulate and become a unifying framework for higher education attainment. So what we're going to do in the next couple of slides is just, again, high-level look at some of the credentialing framework for considerations around implementing a CDA program at the higher education level. The unifying framework, if you're familiar with the Power to Profession that was being facilitated by NAYC, then some of these recommendations are not unfamiliar to you. One, if you are a part of professionalizing this industry, you want to provide a comprehensive education and training to the people that are earning this credential. These are mostly women. These are mostly women of color. Most of the time, first-generation students. Therefore, they need wraparound supports and other things to empower them to be able to step on campus or, in these times, log on to take a course and feel, competent to do so. Include coaching and counseling. I mentioned the program portfolio is an aspect that is driven. The entire process is driven by the candidate, but that piece itself is very personal and it can be perceived as a daunting task to the candidate. So when you are, strategizing your curriculum, please ensure that you envelop that program portfolio development either through homework assignments or other layers or ideas that you can think of to incorporate it so that it is not something that the candidate has to tackle on their own and build a shared understanding of on their own. Being sure that they know what the credential is valued at your program. If a student comes with a credential already, or they earn the credential through coursework through the university or college, that they understand what it articulates to, how it can save them potentially time and money if you are providing credit hours for existing awardees, or if they are going through a program that will articulate into a bachelor's degree or higher. Align with the needs of the employers. As the previous presenters talked about quite well to me, don't underestimate the value of partnerships. Many of the students will need some prerequisites to meet and earn the CDA, namely 480 hours of experience. And what that means is that they need a place to go and learn and really hone in on their practice. So having relationships with your local childcare, or childcare programs, or a chain, if that is what's available in your area, is definitely critical to have that conversation, to let them know that, hey, we can supply you with high quality students in training, or existing, early educators that can, uplift the quality of your programming just by what they have learned and been able to demonstrate through earning this credential. This produces a recognized credential. I don't have to elaborate too much on that. It can lead as a stepping ladder to more things. I think the best example is a living example, and our current CEO, Dr. Moore, earned his CDA. I won't date him in terms of age. I think years ago, we'll just say that. But now he's the CEO of a national organization in the same profession. And so that right there is just testimony to the power of the CDA in terms of empowering people to feel that they are capable and able to complete their degree programs. And then lastly, definitely it builds a skilled workforce, just like the nursing industry, which has these many certifications that you have to go to. We are trying to establish that using this competency-based credential as a stepping stone and a lattice of other additional opportunities into other facets of our industry. Some high level, just thinking about how the common elements of articulation should be thought about. This was borrowed from the TEACH program, which your state is very familiar with operating their own. I was glad to hear that. Is definitely strive to provide some level of statewide transfer or articulation. You may, if you haven't already, need to formalize a subcommittee to usher that effort. And what it really involves, for most of you who know, is establishing what courses align to the credential. Sometimes, in most instances, there are about 3 or 4. They include something around child development, a more general course that might cover all ages, to something more specific around professionalism and how to be an advocate for your profession, how to get involved with policy and be a voice for yourself and others, when you think of things that impact the workforce, like compensation. So you establish a set series of courses, 1 to 3, and how many of these courses valued at in terms of credit hours. And they may exceed our requirement, which is 120 clock hours of formalized education, and that's okay. But what we are aiming for as a goal is that when a student comes to your program, if they go to Columbus State or to Cincinnati, then they know that these, course 102, 103, 104, and 105 are what I need, and they're transferable from one place to the other. It really just streamlines the process and makes it easier for the student to be successful. Monitoring the evaluation of how the program is being implemented. thinking through not just the delivery, but how are you supporting your students on, if they're on campus or doing distance learning or hybrid. Are you meeting dual language needs and things of that nature if you serve a population that speaks a different language other than English? Having a core curriculum of transfer courses, like I mentioned before. Common course numbering. It sounds, like it's not that complicated, but you'd be surprised how many times I've worked with a program or a state where they don't have, common course numbering. And it's just disastrous for a student to understand that what they took, at one university or college is similar and equitable to what they took at another, and they end up taking something, that they don't even need and waste time and money that they probably, could really use at this time. Faculty involvement, getting buy-in early. It's one thing to be in opposition, of what you may think this program can do and the value to your community and to your college, but thinking more so about how can I involve myself? Do we need to provide, some level of prerequisite to get people, acclimated to this environment and ready to learn? Do we have, courses that may need to have, some other component, to make it more relevant to the student? Contextualized learning. Do we need to make adaptations around, prior learning experience and evaluate that into how this could help someone meet some of our, basic level courses? Have guarantees of transfers, and I won't go through all of this, but this is, definitely relevant to create, again, this idea that there's these multiple entry points that people can enter into your program and feel like they can be successful. So what we're looking at now is the core of what the CDA is about. No matter what setting, preschool, infant, toddler, home visitation, or family childcare, these are the core foundation and knowledge components that each student will have to be able to learn. And so when we look at your coursework, if you become a partner of the council, which I will explain a little bit about what that entails a little in a few more slides, is we want to make sure that you are strongly aligned. Sometimes I have evaluated courses, excellent, prestigious colleges teaching child development, and they don't even tackle health and safety. And so, in these times, health and safety is at the top of the list probably now, and couldn't be missed. But, it's so many components and layers, inclusivity, working with children of different abilities. We really want to see that your programming is robust. And even if these things are missing, that you have a plan to incorporate them or modify your courses, whether it's the title or the actual composition of the course itself. So just overview of embedding the CDA as required content. One, you want to account that any courses that you say a student can use to earn the CDA equates to 120 professional education requirements or 120 professional development hours, contact hours. And that's the formal education piece that is comprised of the 8 subject areas that we just reviewed. You want to ensure that per setting, so whether it's preschool or infant toddler or family childcare, as I said before, that there is included a minimum of 10 hours for each of the 8 subject areas. So for each of those 8 subject areas, there needs to be a minimum of 10 hours that correlates to the setting for which that course addresses. So if that course has, for example, 2 settings, maybe it covers in the beginning of the course semester, infant toddler content, and then towards the end, you're now into preschool content. For each of those 2 settings, there has to be 10 hours each. As it relates to those health and safety, for example. 3, you want to determine that the content aligns to the correlation of your program. So you don't want these outlying courses that don't give the student any credits or preparation that can help them meet that 120 hours and say that that's a requirement for your program. And then last, you want to identify which courses have the most content to meet the requirements, and that will make a lot of that correlation work a lot easier. What we're looking at is the actual form that the council will share to support that alignment. We do a cursory high-level review. We do also, if you've heard, have the gold standard program, which goes into a much deeper level, how the courses are aligned, what business practices, what are the student and faculty perceptions of how the program is delivered. And that is a separate program and a separate fee. But what this does for us, if we decide to partner with you or have some formalized relationship, we do this, look at your established courses that you say meet the CDA requirements, and then we evaluate them and give you feedback regarding the courses. That feedback can be very involved, to let you know that, maybe we didn't see enough around parent engagement and how you do that, to, hey, this course title really doesn't make sense based on the course syllabus and description. Or it can just be all accommodations, which I'm sure you guys are all doing wonderful work. Here's a deeper snapshot of that form. As you can see, it's stratified to reflect the different settings, whether there's clock hours that are presented for no credit or versus credit, does it matriculate, etc., what books and materials that you use, other than the competency standards book that are, formulated for the CDA credential. So that's pretty straightforward. This is another example of what we might receive. So these are just course objectives, but as you can see, what I'd like to point out here, I don't even know if you can see my cursor, but if you can, that's helpful. If not, just follow along. So if we look at subject area 1, planning a safe and healthy environment, the course objective lets us know exactly what the students will learn for that course and the exact amount of hours. And what it doesn't say in this particular instance is what age category it's applicable to. So this might prompt me to say, hey, this looks great, but I didn't see whether or not this is for, infant toddlers or preschoolers. And this is really pertinent if you're doing multiple ages into one particular course. If that's not the case, then you're strictly working with one setting, this will be, less cumbersome, obviously, to think through. If you look at the second example, we can see that for CDA subject area 2, they are actually incorporating multiple ages in this. And so this would prompt me to say, I see that this course is only 6 hours. It doesn't necessarily meet our minimum if they don't provide anything additional for the 10-hour minimum. And guess what? You're addressing infants and toddlers and preschoolers. So this course would need to be at minimum 20 hours for those 2 settings. So just an example of how that conversation might work if we do move forward with providing you, or you come to us for feedback. This is very self-explanatory, just depending on your course delivery and program model, you may do CEUs, you may do clock hours, you may do quarter credit, semester credit, and this is just our breakdown as it relates to the 120 clock hours of what that translates to. And then lastly, we will now move into sustainable models. And what I will do is just highlight 2 examples from 2 different states. We'll first look at Kentucky, which is a neighbor of yours. They have a really comprehensive program structured for their early education workforce. They have a pre-lattice component, which requires candidates who want to work, or individuals or early educators, to go through an orientation and learn more about what they offer, which is probably highly effective and mitigates confusion. They also have all of these different pieces that start with, no surprise, the CDA. So the Child Development Associate at the preschool level, They're telling you the different roles that it could apply to based on the reflection of their workforce. And then they have these different pieces of the various levels and what you need to obtain under those different titles. So I like this. It's a really cool infographic and helpful to market and, clarify, just visually what, level of education people need if they are a part of the Kentucky workforce. Here is just some high-level bullets around their career pathway. One, they provide a lot of incentives to their workers. This industry, it's no surprise, is not highly compensated. I always like to think of us as essential workers, just like, your firemen and, even K through 12. We had to be open and available to people. And in that regard, I think we should be recognized and also compensated in the same ways. So I think they have gotten off to a good start. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all project. And so they definitely have some incentives here to help motivate, people who enter the industry to keep them there as they definitely earn higher levels of education and stay in the workforce longer. Lastly, just to stratify further that the credential is valuable to people because it extends well beyond usually the state level requirements. Here you can see illustrated that Kentucky's credential, they do have their own state credential, really doesn't even have even half of what the CDA credential requires. And the CDA itself, as I've said in previous slides, is portable. So even if they earn that Kentucky credential, it's only valid in Kentucky. And they probably have spent time and resources to earn it. Only if they need to, move, that no longer becomes valid. And for someone to have to start all over, that just doesn't sound like something they would want to do. The CDA gives them that accessibility to navigate different areas to live and provide their expertise in the early education field too. The way they've structured everything, to me, definitely helps inform increased buy-in, not only from people who identify as teachers or but also those who work in the capacity of teacher professionals and teacher preparation professionals. So they do have some of their post-secondaries articulate the CDA up to 12 credits. The next model that we will discover is a statewide model that is in Florida. Florida has long been invested in the CDA. They're one of our most high producing states along Texas. Just to give you some stats, Florida's Department of Education early on articulated the CDA for 9 credits. So anyone who enters into a community college that is regulated and accredited through the state will receive 9 credits. And that will articulate into an associate's degree for anyone who establishes that they want to pursue a ECE related field. They also have provided that the CDA must be issued within 3 years of the enrollment. So they have some contingencies to help monitor quality and also allowing for some levels to the student to incentivize them to not only meet the requirements, but to excel at them. And they've had a lot of success. Again, this is one of our most successful states in terms of production of CDA awardees. Now we will transition to what it looks like to earn a CDA in high school. Florida is definitely one of the programs that has a robust high school CDA program with that articulation agreement with the 9 credits with the community college that comes from a dual credit earning program with the majority of their high school districts in the state of Florida. Our high school credentialing process definitely is guided by the belief that all students, once they earn the credential, have established that they are capable of either working in the program or moving on to higher aspirations with pursuing higher education. So just to go back through the foundation of what the credential provides, we have 120 clock hours, which represents the theory, what people are learning, and they are based on the 8 subject areas. And so if you've done the math with the 8 and the 10 minimum requirements, you're like, that's only 80 hours. Where are the other 40 hours? The other 40 hours could be the choice of the student to deepen their knowledge in specific areas. They could be correlated to the subject areas, or they might even expand into things that are burgeoning in our profession, like STEAM. And so that's an opportunity for that student to kind of customize their education, if that makes sense. And then from your standpoint, you can think through how you would like to either lengthen and deepen some of these foundational components or extend some of the others. You have the 480 hours of experience, which is again on that competency building piece, and then the demonstration through the exam, the portfolio, family survey distribution, and the verification visit. As I said before, there are various settings that we offer. These are the required books that each student would need to purchase. They're only $25, but we do have bundle sets that would be probably more advantageous to a teacher preparation program, and if you're buying in bulk as well. Here is a high-level infographic of what the high school CDA process looks like. And if you're familiar with the CDA process, you see that it really mirrors it. I think the big takeaway with developing a high school program is thinking of timing. Ideally, the student will start the learning and practicum in their junior year with hopes of walking out with their high school diploma and or GED and the credential in hand, so that they can either move forward to higher education and or work in the profession. So benefits for students, definitely leaving the high school job ready, getting a jump start on their career, whether they land in the profession of teaching or some other aspect, curriculum, specialist, director, or some that I would name. Assessments available in the language of their work, gaining valuable skills and competencies to be workforce ready, and of course, earning college credits that may be a, official pipeline for higher education institutions. Benefits for faculty, so that might be yourself or in conjunction with maybe the high school faculty or family and consumer sciences department, if that's the way you're structured, is to definitely empower the students and let them know that you're capable of doing this. Serve as a professional development specialist. That is the person that comes out and observes the student. You could be a coach or mentor, and really just find a way that you fit in to help definitely unify this workforce. Some additional resources coming around, probably toward the close of the fall, this fall, is a high school toolkit. This is an effort that the council took on to make sure that there are strategies and a strategic approach to developing a program. So there are testimonials, resources, forms that you can use to advocate and solidify this program in your area or community. I mentioned briefly that there is an opportunity for council partnerships. One, if you'd like dedicated account management of support to help organize and facilitate your work with the council, alignment to the 8 subject areas if you're doing any type of teacher preparation around the CDA. We do data sharing, which is at a cost if you're not a partner, comes with a fee, and that reduced cost is associated with providing outcomes. So once you have a cohort and you've taught them and you want to see, did they move on? Did they apply? Were they successful? We are able to track those names and report that data back out to you. New product development, we may ask you to participate on a focus group or help us pilot a new product. For example, we're working on a leadership certificate and a lead teacher certification. are some of the opportunities that are currently burgeoning at the council. Discounts on those books that I mentioned before, collaboration that is strategic around other goals that we may collectively develop. And then lastly, marketing advertising. You get posted on our website, announced as a council, you're a part of, you receive a press release regarding that announcement. You receive exclusive opportunities to participate in our annual conference and various other sponsorship opportunities as well. And with that, the last component, I mentioned that not only do I have oversight of higher education, but also our alumni network, which is a very, very, very new program. It hasn't been fully implemented yet. We are thinking that we will have a soft launch by the close of this year, but this is just some of the different benefits that we want this community to be able to participate and receive as a resource. So the target audience obviously would be current and past CDA earners, change makers, that's a name that we use for our leadership certificate, gold standard awardees through a friend network, which will be opportunities to provide professional development to this network, webinars, blog contributors, influencers on our social platforms. And then, you know, there will also be a strategic program around ambassadorship for those of you who are emerging or leaders in the field. So definitely a cultivated group that we feel is really lacking. We feel this will fill a gap to have a national organization that is strategic around building recognition of our community. And with that said, I will stop and pause for questions.
Wonderful. So Katora, we do have a few in the Q&A box. So the first one is, do you have to work in a childcare to get a CDA?
So if childcare means a setting that is working with young children in a preschool center-based setting, or infant childcare center-based setting, or if you own a family childcare program that operates in your own home, yes, you would have to earn experience that correlates to that setting. So if you want to earn a preschool credential, you have to, your 480 hours have to be in a preschool environment.
Wonderful. Okay. How does the CDA Council define a career tech program for high school students?
So as I said before, we have an actual toolkit that will provide strategic guidance for anyone who is interested. That will be released soon. We do leave a certain level of customization, obviously, because we want you to serve your community and think through all of the resources that you need to better support them. Obviously, most programs last about 2 years, where the student starts, as I said before, you know, building the learning and capacity, defining what setting they want to work in, and towards that senior year, wrapping up that 480 hours so that they can walk out with both their diploma, core competencies, as well as the CDA credential.
Awesome.
I hope that answers the question. Funding can get really all over the place, so I won't even touch that.
Awesome. The next question, in a high school setting, a career tech that operates a preschool program, can the teacher / instructor be the PD specialist? And so,
great question. So we do have conflicts of interest around professional development specialists. I would follow those guidelines. In some instances, yes, you could serve as both if you can remain objective and you don't have an investment in the student being successful, being their teacher, and also observing them. We really do utilize kind of that dual functionality when we are in rural areas where, you know, it's, you know, not a lot of people, it's not populous whatsoever, and so there's no other choice. This person has to do both. But in most instances, we do ask that you serve, you know, one role independently.
Great. The next question, earlier this year, Dr. Moore mentioned that ebooks will be available at some point. Do you have an update on when those may be available?
Yes, that's a great question. Who has the intel? Yes, so we are working on piloting ebooks. We started with our international programs for obvious reasons of, it's not easy. I think it took 3 months to get books shipped to Egypt. And with that said, we quickly learned that ebooks is a viable option, especially in today's climate of distance learning. So I think they will be ready, if not the close of this year, the beginning of first quarter next year.
Awesome. Next question. This individual is excited about the alumni group.
Woohoo!
Will there be a connection to CDA instructors who may or may not have earned their credential?
Yeah, so again, this, it's called network for a reason. I wanted to be encompassing and open to anyone who has an invested interest in, the council and CDA earners. So some of the roles that you may fall into to be able to join is a professional development specialist. You may be a part of our friend network in providing professional development or a blog contributor or something like that. So there will be opportunities for people who don't fit into that CDA box to be able to participate.
Wonderful. Then also checking our chat. What kind of information is required of universities that would like to offer coursework that is directly correlated to the CDA professional development standards, if a university wanted to offer courses that then lead to the credential?
Yeah, so I would say go for it. That's what we want. Embed the CDA. There's obviously a lot of interested participants. Like I said, over 800,000 credentialed to date who would be interested in your programming. We don't require that you become a partner or participate in the gold standard program to move forward, but obviously we welcome that opportunity for you if you think it's a good fit.
Wonderful. Any additional questions for Keturah? All right, well, we definitely appreciate the partnership that we have with the Council, Keturah. Our scholarships, we are supporting over 800 candidates at the point where they are ready to apply and proceed with that process. And so we do so appreciate the benefits and the pieces that we have set up. We also work with Sandy in your office around some of those career tech options as well. So we just think that it's a great way to get forward and starting in a pathway. And so we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you so much. We definitely appreciate the opportunity. And I just want to say to everyone on the call, no matter what capacity you're working into this workforce, you are valuable and we are happy and lucky to have you, and enjoy the rest of this presentation. It's been great so far. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Judith. And just like Keturah, I have worn many hats in the early childhood education field as well. I've been a classroom teacher. I've started a child care center where not only was I the founder of it, I also ended up being the administrator for many years. I was a leadership coach at 4C for Children, as well as a teacher of CDA classes. And now I am currently the program coordinator of the ECE online program at the University of Cincinnati, which has an associate degree and a bachelor's degree, as well as CDA courses that are online. It is important to note that I am also currently a professional development specialist, and I just want to make a call out to everyone that it is one of the most rewarding experiences that I continue to do. I love to stay connected to the CDA candidates as they are entering the field or solidifying their place in the field, and I encourage all of you to reach out and become a PD specialist. So when the summit began 6 years ago, it was immediately clear that the CDA credential needed to be part of the Ohio's early childhood educational pathway. And I'm going to read the vision again. I know Judith shared this earlier, but The vision for the Early Childhood Higher Education Summit is a clear educational pathway and seamless transition from entry in the field through a baccalaureate degree available for early childhood educators and teach scholars whose goal is to teach and/or support the education of children birth to 3rd grade. So like Katora shared, one of the first elements of a sustainable statewide model for this is an articulation committee. And I'm pleased to say that we did have an articulation committee started all the way back 6 years ago. There was a CDA articulation subcommittee that was established to address this specific need. And I'm happy to say that the subcommittee most recently met face-to-face back in February of 2020. And out of that meeting, it resulted in this Ohio's model for the CDA articulation, which I'm really happy to share with all of you today. So it's important to briefly share that the early childhood landscape in Ohio, which you've heard about already in the other presentations, but this has shaped the committee's recommendations. As we talked about in the very first presentation in July of 2018, the Step Up to Quality Career Pathway model awarded 35 points for a CDA credential. And this actually equates to a career pathway level or a CPL level 2, which qualifies most people to be a lead teacher in childcare centers. And then as Kara discussed in our first presentation, this change was founded on immense amount of research and analysis regarding the effectiveness of teachers and how effective they were in childcare classrooms, and seeing that the CDA made a significant difference. Also in the last few years, the state of Ohio has made significant investments in the CDA by providing training, covering substantial supports, a substantial portion of the CDA assessment fee through the Teach scholarships. These two factors really validated the committee's belief that the CDA credential was a workforce-ready credential and should be acknowledged in higher education. The realization that there was no governing body telling institutions of higher education that this CDA credential had to be articulated created barriers for this committee for several years. However, it did lead to an epiphany that it was up to us at the institutional level to seek agreements with each other. So upon an initial survey a few years ago, the committee found that some institutions across the state were awarding some credit for a CDA credential. This chart was shared last year at the summit. As you can see, if a CDA credential was earned in an Ohio approved or gold standard training, it could lead to 6 to 9 semester hours of college credit. If the CDA credential was earned at a college, it could also lead to 6 to 9 credit hours. And finally, some colleges were awarding 2 to 3 credits for a CDA credential that didn't fit into those other 2 categories. I just want to give a shout out to my colleagues, Charvella McKay at Columbus State and Swapna Parander at Sinclair and Danette Bosch-Alexander at Stark State. Because if it wasn't for them, we would not have been able to put this initial chart together. This chart actually was significant to us because it just captured the wide variance of the credits that were being awarded at just 4 institutions across our state. This chart highlights that Columbus State would award 9 credits for the courses that they have actually created specifically for the CDA credential classes. Sinclair would award credit for health, safety, nutrition, intro to early childhood education, and intro to child development if the student took their CDA classes at Sinclair. And they would only award health, safety, nutrition if they transferred in. Stark State awards the same 3 classes as Sinclair, but for slightly less credits. And the University of Cincinnati awards 9 credits, but for health, safety, nutrition, intro to child development, and then an elective if they actually complete their CDA at UC in the online program. UC awards 6 credits if their credential was earned with Ohio approval, and 3 credits of electives if there was no evidence of where the CDA coursework was obtained. I know that this is a lot of information, but I hope that you can see the huge range of what was being accepted for a CDA credential. Again, this information was shared last year, but it actually then led to an excellent turnout at the workday meeting back in February, where I think there were over 20 institutions represented. So the outcome of that meeting in February was an articulation position paper. It's a one-page paper, and I'm going to discuss each parts of the paper, but it is downloadable if you go to the 2020 Summit website. So the goal was kind of obvious. It was a statewide consensus for pathways to CDA articulation. Of course, we had to start off with a rationale. I won't read this all to you, but we did realize that students in the ECE field can start in career and technical centers, and that students in this field frequently switch from one institution to another. We also highlighted the rigor of the CDA credential, as Katora pointed out earlier. The challenge was to reach a statewide consensus for the articulation of the CDA credential to college credits. So the proposal is this. Each institution will determine the credit range for a student holding a valid, not expired, CDA certificate from the Council for Professional Recognition. The credit hours awarded would be no less than 3 and no more than 9 semester hours. This range was agreed upon by the representing groups, which would allow each institution flexibility with their current credit and program offerings. The following courses would be the recommended articulated courses. Foundations of, or as we referred to on the other slide, Intro to Early Childhood Education, Health, Safety, and Nutrition. And it's very important to note that articulation would never be allowed for a capstone or a practicum level course, as we all recognize that the CDA certificate is more of an entry-level credential, and capstone or practicum is at the end of a program. While the CDA certification process has been explained in great detail, and I'm sure we can all agree it's very, very rigorous, the Articulation Committee had concerns with the actual rigor of those 120 clock hours of preparation coursework. We agreed that the quality of the CDA preparation program matters, and college credits should only be given under these circumstances. That the CDA preparation program is taken for college credit and it's verified by a transcript. That the CDA preparation program has Ohio approval, Ohio approved modules as verified by an Ohio Professional Registry profile, or the CDA preparation program has a gold standard distinction and is verified by letterhead. Currently, the Ohio Professional Registry has the ability to certify the quality of instruction and accountability by verifying course transcripts and the Ohio approved professional development training modules, but the gold standard designation is still at the recommendation stage with the registry. So as always, there's future work that is needed, and this is where the committee has included a couple of recommendations. And these are really to address the elements of the effective articulation that Katora laid out earlier in the presentation. We are indicating that a crosswalk between the CTAG courses, which are some of the courses that I identified earlier as recommended courses, and the CDA. So having a crosswalk between those courses. And then strengthening relationships with the career and technical centers and colleges and institutions of higher education, as well as continued efforts in sharing the workforce needs. So that's the end of the position paper, and I would say that the ball is in your court now, so to speak. It's kind of a call to action at this point. I trust that you see the value and the rigor of the CDA credential, and so the call to action is really just go do something with this information. What can your institution do to move the needle regarding articulation of the CDA credential? Can you maybe develop a transfer agreement with another institution? Can you become more familiar with the CDA coursework and see how it already aligns with existing courses, or could you make modifications to count them towards the CDA? In the spring, we will have a follow-up, and we are going to survey everyone that is on this webinar just to see about some kind of implementation plans. What are you doing to take the information that you've learned today and do something with it? We would love to hear stories of your impact or of the impact that the CDA is making, even if it is just a part of you being more intentional about adding this into your curriculum. So now we will pause and we will check the chat box and see if you have any questions about this proposal.
And Kathleen, while they are thinking of those questions for a moment, I also have a poll for them.
Oh, a poll?
I do. You know, I love those polls. So I'm going to take this back for just a moment. And launch our next poll around the CDA. So if folks could take that for us, that might help incite some questions.
These are excellent questions, Judith.
Thank you. We'll allow just a couple more. We have about 60% those that have voted. We'll allow just a few seconds here to finish that out. Also, while we're waiting, if you would like to put in the chat, that maybe your approach to putting the proposal into practice, if you haven't already done that at your institution, I think we'd be happy to hear more about that as well.
Judith, I see there's a question asking where the position paper will be posted. I probably messed up where the summit, the actual title of the summit, where all these links are going to be, but that is where the proposal will live. Can you repeat that? I know it was 2020 something summit.
Yes, it's 2020 Higher Ed Summit. Let me pull that back up here. And I will post again because we've been chatting a little bit.
And if it's not already there, we will make sure that it's there when this recording is posted.
Absolutely. So we'll be building that site to include all of the handouts and sessions, but at least you would have the location for that. Wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and end the poll, and we will share results. Okay, so for our first question, we have 88% that says the range is about right for the credit. And then I commend you all because of those folks that responded. A third of you are already PD specialists. So that is fantastic news. We need you to do that role, as well as, you know, I mentioned before, we have 800 candidates a year that just Teach has, and that's, you know, just a drop in the bucket for what our state provides. So we do so appreciate that effort. We have another, almost a third, that would like to know more. So that's exciting news as well. So we will definitely get that information out there. All right. So Kathleen, I don't know if you saw, there was a chat around how are people who use the OA training to fulfill their 120 hours for CDA, and are they still able to articulate, or does all 120 hours have to be gold standard?
So we're treating those as two separate things at this point. Since we don't have a way of indicating that the training has been gold standard at this point in the registry, we can only indicate that it has been Ohio approved training for the CDA.
Yes. We have a question. Let's see. I'll repeat where the position paper. So again, I've posted the location in the chat, and we'll definitely make sure we get that uploaded.
Judith, can I go back to the Ohio approved training for just a minute?
Please.
Because this is something just personally that I am challenged by sometimes. So currently at the University of Cincinnati, if a student says they have taken their CDA training for Ohio approved, we ask them to show their registry profile. And that's usually, I'm happy that that has been an increasingly easier task. You know, I remember back in the days, you know, some of our teachers would say, I don't even know how to find my registry, but now I feel like there has been greater responsibility for each of the teachers to own their own registry profiles. So that's great progress. But, you know, we have given credit for the CDA when we can see that they took the Ohio approved CDA modules, not just them piecing together Ohio approved professional development. If they have done that on their own, they have then submitted that to the council to get their CDA credential. We are not currently rewarding that as the training program for the CDA. I don't know if I'm confusing things, and I'm really open to discuss this because I feel like I'm not being fair, but I'm not so sure all the places that they're going to piece together what the council recognizes for their certificate. I can trust that what the Ohio approved CDA training is and has been and how it looks on the profile. Some of the other ones where they're piecing things together, I can't usually figure out and even get it to 120 hours. So I'm open to hearing thoughts about that.
And Karen has added, we already have courses that we've aligned to the CDA credential, but we want to revisit alignment and consider offering college credit for active CDA holders. So
I'm sorry, was there a question in there? I'm sorry.
No, more of a statement.
Okay. A statement, got it. I was thinking about that.
Yes. So now we'd like to open up if anyone would like to share. If you'd like to raise your hand, I can see that here and share about your CDA experiences. Relating to the, the proposal or providing credit. All right, so hearing none, I just want to turn it back over to Kathleen and Katori if there is any final thoughts.
I think I'll summarize first, and if Katura wants to jump back in, now that she has maybe a better understanding of what we're doing in Ohio, she might be able to make some recommendations. But I just want to encourage everyone on this call to get involved in this work. Again, this is something that we are trying to support our workforce. We are trying to be very student-centered and not having students repeat things. Obviously, obtaining the CDA credential early on in their coursework is such a confidence builder. We have seen that over and over again by just obtaining that credential, because it is so rigorous to obtain. That gives them the confidence that they can continue on. So I think many of us on this call are at various levels of supporting students with the CDA, but I think, as it was said early on, it is the best first start for people that are entering this very, very important field of early childhood. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here today and share our current work with this current committee work, and I'm sure there's work that will continue.
Thank you, Kathleen. I just want to underscore your sentiment that this is important work. I think that everything that your summit, the committee, the work that Okra is doing, our council partners, Sinclair and Columbus State, Charvella and Schwachna, really do emphasize that we are working toward building a profession, one that is needed and one that I think will be valued to kind of help change the positive trajectory of our society. So thank you so much for everybody for your time.